Hi, my name is John, and welcome to Your Knot Understanding. Here we're going to talk about a knot. This is a new knot, I think. It's one that I believe I came up with, but I could be wrong. I looked for it in Ashley's Book of Knots, and I couldn't find it. And I'm wondering if any of you have seen it before. Before I show you the knot, which I call the two hands knot, I'm going to show you a couple things that lead up to what it is. First, I'm going to tie the reef knot. Now, everybody knows what a reef knot is. It's the same thing as a square knot. Very simple to tie. You just left over right, and then under, and then right over left, and then under and through. That's a reef knot. And you can see that there's a big gaping hole in the middle there. It's a very pretty knot. But it's not a great knot as bends go because, well, often it just comes apart. It just so happens that this rope has little knobs on the end, which make it so that it's not fully untying. So anyway, the reef knot is not a great knot, but we'll tie it one more time. Left over right, right over left, and then through. There's the reef knot. Now, what if I wanted to modify that knot a little bit? I'm going to modify the knot as follows. Left over right and under. Right over left. But rather than sending this one through here, through there like that, I'm going to send it down. You see between, there's a hole in the bottom of the knot there. I'm going to send this down through there. So I've just sent that down through there. And this is another kind of knot. This is a well-known knot called the sheet bend. Now, what's a bend? A bend is any knot for tying two ends together. The sheet bend is a pretty good knot. That's not going to come loose too soon, especially since this line is spongy. It makes it so that this knot stays together really, really well. That's a sheet bend. But you see how we did that? We started from the first half of a reef knot. And then we finished by sending this down through here. And there's your sheet bend. Okay, now getting on to the next knot. You may be familiar with a knot called the granny knot. The granny knot is just like a square knot. Note, the square knot is not called a bend. It's really not recommended as a bend. So don't use it as a bend to tie two ends together. Here's a granny knot. It's even worse than the square knot is. You tie a granny knot as follows. You go left over right and under. Then you do left over right again and under. And it ends up kind of a twisty knot. You see how twisty that is? So that, you see, if I try to force it to be like a square knot, that's the shape you get. But it likes to twist like this, so that this line on the left side is kind of going through a vertical loop, and the line on the right side is going through a horizontal loop. But you see, even if I pull it pretty tight, well, actually, if I pull it tight, it's not a terrible knot. But it's not a great knot. It's well known for being, all these knots are ending up a lot better than I expected them to be. But this is not a great knot. It comes undone pretty easy. Now I'm going to modify the granny knot in the same way we modified the reef knot. So I'm going to go left over right and under. Then I'm going to go left over right. But then I'm going to go find this hole here and go down through this hole. And look at this. As I pull it, it gets tighter and tighter. And it's a really tight knot. Now this is what I call the two hands bend. It's got a kind of weird kind of, what do I call it? A kind of tetrahedral shape to it, where each of these ends of line are pointing to a corner of the tetrahedron. But anyway, so that's the two hands bend. And This is a knot I came up with. It looks really simple. Somebody must have come up with it before. Maybe you know about it. And now it's a pretty good bend as simple bends go. You can always get better bends by making your knot more complex. Knots like the Zeppelin bend or the Hunter's bend. This is the two hands bend. Now, why do I call it the two hands bend? Well, because of the two different turns it's made of. Let me just take it apart and I'll show you the turns. Taking it apart, it comes undone, very nice. Okay. Now, this is what's called a turn. A turn is when a line goes around and then comes back and crosses itself. And the question is, would you call this a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn? Well, it depends what, it depends on if it's in front when it crosses itself or in back when it crosses itself, if it's going clockwise. If it's going clockwise, see, clockwise towards the end, so it's coming up here, going around in a circle, then coming down across there. When you do that, it's crossing underneath. It's turning like a screw and going deeper into the table as it goes underneath. And since it's turning clockwise and going away from my eyes, that's what I would call a right-hand turn. Now, if it were going the other way, or if I'm doing clockwise and then coming closer to me, that's the same as a left-hand turn. That's a left-hand turn, because if you flip it over, look at that. Now it's going left, counterclockwise, and it crosses under itself the way, say, a left-handed screw would go. So that's the two kinds of turns. Now, what I have, this knot called the two hands bend is made up of two different turns. Two different kinds of turns that are each holding each other together. So if I go back to the granny knot just for a second, left over right, then left over right. Okay, this is a granny knot. And you see it's made of two turns. There's the orange turn and the green turn. And if you look at the orange turn, that is a left-hand turn. The orange turn is a left-hand turn. If you look at the green turn, it's also a left-hand turn. So the granny knot is made out of two identical turns. They're both left-hand turns here. So, but the two hands turn is made out of a left turn and a right turn. So if I do left over right, and then I do left over right and down through, if you look at these turns, this turn is a right-hand turn. So the green rope is a right-hand turn, and the orange rope is a left-hand turn. What if I showed you how to tie these knots one end at a time? So if you make one turn and then put the other turn through it. So first of all, I'm going to create a left-hand turn with my right hand. That's a left-hand turn with my right hand. And look, this end is traveling towards the left. Then I'm going to tie with this orange line, create a right-hand turn interlocking with this left-hand turn. So I send that through there. Then I bring it down under the cross. See, that's the cross where my fingers are holding it together. And then I put it back through here like this. And that's a right-hand turn. So I have a left-hand turn with the green line and a right-hand turn with the orange line. And I tighten them up. And there we go with the two hands bent. Now, two hands bend, yeah, it's an okay knot. It's not a great knot. It's rather ugly and weird looking. It does hold. It holds really well, especially with nice hard line. But what's really awesome about this knot is how it turns into a nice loop. So what I just showed you regarding how to tie one end at a time, well, we'll do that same thing, except we're going to give ourselves a lot of extra line with this orange line. And I'm going to create the left-hand turn with my right hand. And then I'm going to take this other end and I'm going to send it through there and to make a right-hand turn with it. So it goes through the loop like that. And then we just tighten these up. And you get what I call the two hands loop. And you just have to yank on all the corners, pull it tight. Now, what's cool about this loop is that it's easy to adjust. That is, I can just pull on it and it gets smaller, or I can pull on it, and there was a way to do this. Maybe with sponge it with a harder line or a better line, it would work better. But it's also possible to make it bigger by holding on to the proper parts of the knot. So therefore it's adjustable. And even though it's pretty adjustable without, if you don't over tighten the knot, it's pretty adjustable, it never acts like a noose. It's never going to just tighten on you. And so you get it to the size you like, and then you do this. And now you've got a great knot. So now I'm going to show you how to tie the loop around an object, which it's actually really easy to do. So first of all, we send the line around like that, and then you twist this line here so that it makes a loop like this. This is your left-hand turn, but note that you twist it so that the loop is up, and that the standing part of the line, that's this part, is farther away from the center of everything. Okay? Then you take this end here and you send it through there, then under, and then back there. And now you have the loop. And now you just need to tighten it up. But it's a great way to just tie a loop around something. Now, so that's very, very nice. I want to show you one more thing, which is how to make the loop really, really secure. And what you can do to make that happen is, I'm going to move this a little further up there. So, to make that happen, you basically turn this into a double loop. So you get this double loop here, or double turn, and then you send this through both of them, and then you come back underneath and go through both of them again. And then you tighten up the double loop. Let's get a little more line coming through here. There we go. So now, I mean, you look at that, it's actually a very pretty loop. This isn't going anywhere. It's a very, very secure knot. So that's the two hands loop. This is actually the ultra secure two hands loop. But I want to know if you guys know if you've ever seen this knot before, because it's totally new to me. My name's John, and thank you for watching this episode of You're Not Understanding.